Hey, everybody. We are back, Paul Barron and I, with our dear friend Bobby Shew for part two of this wonderful and interesting interview. We left off last time, and Bobby was talking about some of the people he's worked with, and he was just starting to talk about trumpets. And we've had a post, a question in the group, which is, do you still work with Yamaha on the horn designs? And let's pick it up there.
Well, yes, and yes, and yes. Yeah, I'm in my 46th year working with Yamaha, and I have to say, it's a very humbling and flattering relationship. It's a wonderful company to be associated with because of many reasons. One of which is that when I first got tied up with them was it was back in the 70s, and I was on tour with Toshiko's band. This would have been about mid 70s, 75 or 6, something like that. And we were doing a sound check in Tokyo, and backstage there was Kenzo Kawasaki and a young kid about 19 or 20 years old by the name of Hiro Okabe. And Hiro Okabe eventually became the head of all of Yamaha worldwide. I mean, sort of, and he's retired now, but he was like a 19-year or 20-year-old kid then. But they asked me if I would test some horns for him, and I did, and whatever, I won't go into all of that, but they were just starting, weren't building pro horns at that point. They were doing a few student model things and just starting to get the band and orchestra division opened up. So every time we went to Japan, I would go with them and so forth. Years later, I brought a few different horns back to LA, and people said, "You're not playing a Japanese trumpet, are you?" And I said, "Well, try it." And then people would play it and they'd say, "Geez, where can I get one of these?" And they weren't making them, so they were doing them by hand through a Dick Charles Music in Glendale. He was like the sole dealer, and whatever they would make they'd make 10 of them by hand, ship them over, and all the studio guys would run down and buy them. Everybody was one of these Yamaha trumpets. So over the period of time, we kept developing various models and trying different bells and different things and so forth, the A and the B and all of this, and the copper and the red rose brass and the yellow brass. And we did things, and it was like a big education, because for me, I mean, I knew some things about it, but I was not really like an engineer or anything like that. I just pick it up and I say it sucks or it plays nice, And I had been playing everything from I started on a $39 trumpet from Montgomery Ward's catalog. And that's what I played on all the way through first chair, through high school and all state orchestras and everything. A $39 trumpet. And guys had $200 rental contemporaries and everything. But you don't need the expensive trumpet to sound good. You just need the right mechanics. But anyway, once Bob Malone started getting tied up with Yamaha, and that would have been probably, I don't remember what year, in the early 80s maybe, or something like that, Bob is a bit, he knows things that it's almost like from another planet. This guy knows, he's just such a smart cookie. And he's got, I just like sat back, and he taught me so many things I couldn't believe,
And he's a fun guy to be around. He's a great hang, and we've got to hang out with him a little bit over in Buena Park down there, and but great guy and a member of our group, I got to say. So a little shout out to Bob out there.
Yeah. Well, he's like a brother to me, man. I mean, he's a teacher and a friend and everything, But anyway, the thing is, over the years of working with Yamaha, I've met some screwball people with that company and some wonderful people with the company. It's a typical, it's got a mixture of all kinds of things. But they are a very powerful company worldwide. The products they make are so consistent, it's almost scary, I mean, I don't know how many Yamaha trumpets I have in my studio right here, right now, but if I turn my head just slightly, I can see about 7 of them, and they're all like, this is This one right here is this is a very old 8310Z. It goes back quite a few years. I mean, they're all over the place. Every room, not every room. I don't take a trumpet to bed with me, you know, and the bathrooms don't have trumpets in them. But my offices do. They're out here in the studio. There's ones here across the room. This is a big studio. I'll give you a little glance at it. It's 2,600 feet, this room. It's bigger than a lot of people's homes.
Yeah, that's a big studio.
And we can get a big band in here, which we have done, you know. But I keep trumpets out here all the time, and they're all over the place, and different ones, you know. And I have an Eric Miyashiro model here, and I get, you know, Bob sends me things to try, and we're going to start working on a new flugelhorn coming up pretty soon. They're in the process of putting together some prototypes for me to test. But I like working with the company because they've honored me by trusting me to be the deciding factor of whether a horn should be put on the market or not, whether it's ready. And in some cases back in the early days, you know, they weren't quite ready, and they were throwing all these horns together, and I was testing them, and I say, not quite right, not quite right. And then we had to change a few braces. We had to change a few things. You know, the horn, especially the Z trumpet, is a very light and very responsive instrument. And it's not typical that a classical player would go that way, because they tend to like a little heavier horns for a little more sturdier resistance for the way they play music, you know. But anyway, they honored me with being able to kind of design the Bobby models and stuff, and they sell like crazy. I mean, most stores can't keep them in stock, you know. With the pandemic the way it is right now, production obviously is down. You know, it's very hard for them to excuse me, for them to keep their production levels up at the highest thing, but they're doing what they can, and the horns are all over the world, and they come out with a 8310Z2, a new version just recently, and it's selling like.
What's the difference in that between the 1 and the 2?
I'm not free to tell you all of it.
Okay. Okay.
You know, there are a few things in it with annealing. A couple of things have been changed, braces. You know, they made the first models too light, and they didn't have enough resistance. And, you know, people talk about resistance in a horn. It's like, oh, no, it has resistance. Without resistance, you're not going to center any notes. You know, you need, you know, for every action, there's a reaction, so to speak, in physics, you know. When you push air through a horn to try to set up vibrations, if it's too light, it goes haywire. If it's too heavy, it's like you have to put on your military gear to make it vibrate, you know. And somewhere in between, trying to get a horn at the right weight that it responds to you for the right type of playing. Now, I mean, somebody playing the first trumpet in a Chicago Symphony Orchestra probably wouldn't like the 8310Z, because it's probably not going to, it's too light. Philip Smith, there's a famous story, a true story, that was only relayed to me by one of the Yamaha tech guys in New York. Philip Smith with New York Phil was looking for a B-flat trumpet, and he went into the Yamaha atelier in New York City, and they put a bunch of B-flats out there for him. There's the Zenos, you know, which are a little more heavier, classical kind of thing. They put a bunch of different ones out there, and he picked up a Z trumpet, you know, and he kept playing it. He kept going back to it, and he finally said to this guy, I can't remember who it was, the tech guy. He said, "My God, this is an unbelievable trumpet." You know, he says, "It's unbelievable." And so the tech guy says, "Well, I'm glad you like it. We'll give you one if you like." And Philip says, "Oh, no, I would never play this trumpet." And the guy says, "Well, why not? I thought you liked it." He says, "Oh, it's far too easy to play." I said, "There's your ad right there. Just take a picture of Philip Smith saying, this trumpet is too easy to play. Put that on the back of a dummy. You couldn't make enough of them, you know. But the thing about that is people get on autopilot with the neuromuscular systems in their body. They get where you get habitual kind of feelings in your body when you play a horn, you know. It's like a certain kind of resistance, and then you pick up a different horn from a Bach. You've been playing a Bach Stradivarius for a lot of years, a 72 or whatever. Then you go pick up a Selmer or a Van Laar or a Monet, and it all sounds and feels different. And it goes, you know. It's like you've been driving a pickup truck all of a sudden, and you're getting a Ferrari. It's going to confuse you, you know, because your neuromuscular system, your brain, and everything is not geared for that. And a lot of people don't understand that technology in the neuromuscular. They call it muscle memory, but it's neuromuscular because the muscles are just pieces of meat that do things because they are capable of squeezing and punching and doing exertions, you know. But they can't do anything. They don't get a message from the brain to tell it what to do. So we have neurons in the brain that tell the muscles. They go down and trickle down through and connect. All the neurons interconnect until you get muscles. When you practice, for instance, and you play a particular arpeggio or a scale or anything over and over again, one of the most important things in playing is repetition. But if you do it differently every time, then it confuses the brain, and you set up, or if you do it incorrectly every time, you set up a bad habit that's going to mess you up, and you won't have any chops, or it pinches this or something is wrong with your playing. And guys like myself, when people come to me, I'm not giving them so much as I'm taking away bad habits. I'm trying to, but I can't take away a bad habit. I have to reprogram them with something new. That's the use of neuroplasticity. Anyway, back to the whole point about trumpets and stuff like that. When people go into a store to try new trumpets or go to a trade show or something, one of the most disastrous areas in any trade show, an ITG thing, is that exhibit area, you know.
Oh yeah.
Every trumpet player's in there trying to play high G's on every trumpet, you know. And then you get some asshole that comes, oh, did I say asshole? You get some asshole that comes in there that can play them. He's got to go around to every booth and play high G's and double C's and draw everybody's attention over there. And they got to run over and say that, look who it is. It's, he's very famous, you know. And then he goes to the next booth and then he plays a double C there. And the kids are all just following him around like flies on a turd, you know. And, you know, and all he's doing is showing off. And I can't go into those exhibit areas at all. I cannot. I don't want to be in there. People like Dave Monette, he doesn't even want to be in the same building. He always gets a loft in a bell tower a block away or something. You make an appointment to try his horns or something. And Yamaha always tries to get way down at the end of a hall in a private room of their own, you know. But the thing is, my point is that people don't know how to test. And I've written an article, how to test. There's a video that you can get. I'll send it to you if you want it, on how to test the Z trumpet. You could apply it to anything, but I'm not out here doing videos on how to go buy a Van Laar or a Monet trumpet. You know, I mean, Yamaha had me put this thing together for them. But the principles of testing an equipment have to do with common denominators and not trying to do idiotic things on it. If you play the same thing on 5 different trumpets, then you can tell the difference. But if every time you pick up a horn, you play something different, you play joy spring on this one and Hummel on that one, the test is not valid, you know, unless you have common denominators in it, you know. So I've devised what I think is a very sensible, logical, and pretty intelligent test method. It can vary based on the skill level of the player. A 13-year-old kid's not going to do the same thing that Wayne Bergeron's going to do to test an equipment, you know. But, you know, guys that go in there with big egos, which is parentheses self-importance, That's what a definition of ego is they think they're so important, they got to show off and show everybody how no, I won't say that. I'll use another term, but how big the car is that they drive.
We can infer where you were going.
I know you can. You know, but the point about it, when they have to go in there and do that self-importance thing, you know, it doesn't do anybody any good, and it certainly, you know, I mean, bless his soul, Jerome Collett, you know, when he was alive and all of that, he used to have a booth, and they used to throw him out of the trade shows sometimes because he couldn't really play any music, but he would play like the loudest double C's in the world, you know, and people would go over there and they'd hear this guy playing double C's. They'd run over there. Oh my God, that's the greatest trumpet in the world. I have to buy one of those, you know. And of course it wasn't, you know, but his booth would be right next to a flute exhibitor or a violin player. And they'd finally, after 5 days of the Texas Bandmaster Association of Jerome Collett screeching double C's, or him hiring a player to come in and do it for him, they put in a request and everybody signed a petition to have him removed. They'd bring in, like, the police would show up at his booth and have him wrap up all his stuff and walk him out, you know, and it was like sad to see, but you know, this is like the ego kind of things that happen, those things. When I go to the ITGs and stuff like that, I don't go anywhere near those booths, you know. I stay completely away from that stuff. I don't want it. I mean, what do I need to do? And if I pick up anybody else's trumpet, if I see a friend of mine who works for such and such, I've got friends that work for other companies than Yamaha, you know. And if I say, hey, haven't seen you in a while, Ernie, how you doing, man? He says, hey, oh, this is our new trumpet. Bobby, I play a few notes on it. I play it and everybody go, oh, Bobby's playing an Ernie trumpet. Oh, Bobby's switching trumpets. And then the word, I get like phone calls from Yamaha. What are you doing playing an Ernie trumpet? You know, I'm not playing. I just blew a couple of notes on it. He's a friend of mine, you know. You dig what I'm saying? The next thing you know, it's all over Facebook. There's photos of Bobby playing a Acme trumpet with a picture of a Roadrunner on it or something. I mean, I can't go anywhere without somebody like trying to get me in trouble, you know. It's just, anyway, that's the whole thing about all of this is it's a screwball kind of a world with trumpet players and so forth like that. But that's what I try to do, is teach people to test the equipment properly and so forth, you know. It's important.
Yeah, very cool. Well, let's talk a little bit. You know, I know you are, you know, you were talking about the mind, you were talking about neuroplasticity, but let's talk about something here, and you can make this brief if you want. You know, just improving. How does one go to improve their, let's say, their mind horn, your body mind coordination, or whatever you want to call it? You know, I mean, I know you were talking about listening, playing by ear. For me, that's a big part of it. But what other techniques are out there for people to improve the mental aspects of playing?
Well, I mean, when you look at playing, you can look at it in two sides, like the left brain, the right brain, so to speak, you know. But there is the mechanical side of the instrument, and then there's the creative side and the emotional side of you and the musicality, you know. One of the most important things in putting yourself together and improving, as I showed you earlier in the part one, the thing about the pursuit of excellence, you know, how gratifying and healthy it is, and how to do that, how to practice. And I don't know if I've sent you, but there's an article that I've sent about a better approach to practicing and stuff like that. And I see how kids practice sometimes, and it drives me nuts. I think you're wasting your time in here. You're playing the same shit you played yesterday. If you know how to play something, don't play it. You know, play stuff. There's three parts to practicing. It's maintenance, it's problem solving, and moving to new territory. But maintenance doesn't have to be 2 hours of long tones and pedal notes and playing the same scale, the 25 pages of the Clark or Arvin. That's not maintenance. Maintenance is really getting all the fundamental great green lights on. The 4 fundamentals of troubleshooting, which we've talked about, and you know what they are, Bobby, that's in everything, that's the feeling of the lips, the abdominal support of your air, controlling the aperture, and playing on the right mouthpiece. Those apply to Maurice Andre and Chet Baker the same way, but they don't all play the same mouthpiece and they don't all breathe the same way. But we personalize everything past the thing. So you have to stop first and foremost and look at your fundamentals. Get the green lights on. Do your chops feel good? Are you using your air properly? Are you getting a good sound? That's a sign of tone production mechanics. That's aperture control. Then is the mouthpiece serving you well? You're getting the right sound in the register and moving around. That's fine. Get the green lights on and then get into problem solving. Problem solving for me is the most important thing. It requires first and foremost humility. Because humility, you cannot grow and expand in the lack of being humble about yourself as a player. You know, if you sit there and say, you know, I'm a bad cat, you know, I'm gonna show those cats in LA what it's all about, you know, I'm gonna get out there, man, you know, and Gary, hey, ain't got nothing on me, you know, or whatever, you know. Get the hell out of here. We're back to Couch Canyon again, you know. I mean, I could have made more money as a shrink, I think. There's a lot of work for trumpet players in that field, you know. But the idea is make, however you have to do it, you can do it psychologically, mentally, or you can do it physically, which is you could get a little practice notebook, spiral notebook, and say, my weaknesses, and be honest about them. You know, if you can play comfortably Autumn Leaves in the key of G minor concert, fine. Can you play it in A flat minor concert? Can you play it in F sharp minor concert? Can you play it in B minor concert? Well, oh no, maybe not. Well, those are weaknesses, aren't they? You know. Well, for me, every guy and whatever genre of music he's into has weaknesses in his playing, whether it's classical music. But you have to prioritize everything. First and foremost, at the top of the list is the sound quality that you get for the type of music that you're playing. If you get a classical sound and then you try to play Joy Spring, it's not going to work. You know, it's the wrong thing. If you get a mariachi sound and you try to play like a tribute to Chet Baker, it ain't going to work. You know, or if you get Chet Baker sound and you try to play in a mariachi band, you're fired. You know, it's adios muchacho. You know? So the point about it is each genre of music that you're playing in, and people who are like studio players who every 3 hours you're playing a different type of music, a different style, because you're in Universal now and then you're at Warner Brothers and then you're at wherever, you know, and you know every 3 or 4 hours you're playing something different. You don't know what you're going to play. So people who are eclectic players need to have different categorical things. So back to the point, you get sound quality per genre, first priority. Second one is intonation. Third one is articulation. Number 4 is flexibility. And then you can add things like range if it's necessary. Like if you're doing a tribute to Chet Baker, you don't have to worry about a double C or a high G, you know? So the point being that you have to, but prioritizing sound quality first and foremost. So you get in, and if you get the green lights on, you're getting a good sound, they're playing in tune, you're moving around flexibility, the articulations are clean, get the hell out of there. Maintenance is done. Now go into the weaknesses in your playing and work on them. They're not all going to go away in one day. Even if you pick the key of B one day, it's not all going to be masterful in one day. But maybe if you only pick 30 minutes of it and you play the key of B, play the scale of the B major, play, and I joke around with this, but I say play Mary Had a Little Lamb and London Bridge is Falling Down in the key of B by ear. Play the first 8 bars of the Star Spangled Banner in B by ear. You know, you don't have to do the Hummel in B yet. you know, but the idea is to explore the key of B, like it's going into a room, everything's blue. Wow, everything is blue in this room. You go into another room, oh, well, in this room is all pink. This one is F sharp or whatever. You've got to explore keys till you become really comfortable in various keys, because when you sit down in front of a piece of music, you don't know what the hell, 5 sharps, oh my God, you know, whose idea was this, you know? What's the old joke about Miles Davis about a transposition? When somebody says, Miles, when the piano's in F, where does that put the trumpet? Why, in G. And when the piano's in B flat, where does that put the trumpet? In C. And when the piano's in E, where does that put the trumpet? Right back in the case. So,
well, I remember you telling me one thing that kind of relates back to this as well, which was, you know, you had a way back then, and I suppose you still use it. You called it the snowball effect, you know, and it was really kind of a revelation for me at the time, because in college, you know, you're expected to, we got to practice all of this stuff, you know, and it gets overwhelming. And I've seen in our group that people are overwhelmed sometimes with what to do and what to work on and this and that, and how you choose things or whatever. But the idea that was very helpful for me, and still is to this day, is just don't set a clock or anything. Just go in and try to do one thing and work on that until you got it. And you said whether it takes you a minute or whether it takes you an hour, accomplish it, walk away for a little bit, take a little break, and then come back and work on the next thing. And then you develop this arsenal of things. And so that's something that's along these lines here that I remember.
Well, it is true. And the thing about it is, what you have to watch out for here is that you can set the goal of that process a little too aggressively, and like with the ego, you can say, I'm going in there and I'm going to get this son of a gun, you know. Well, no, that's a stressful way to approach it, you see. Take the key of B and just get friendlier with it. You know, if there's a neighborhood bully that lives around you, you're not, you know, you got to get to know him a little bit and find out that you both like the Dodgers, and then that helps, you know. Eventually you'll find that you both like Maurice Andre, and then that helps more. And then you'll find out that he likes cheesecake and you can't stand it. And then there's going to be differences, you know. But the point about it is that you have to get to know this guy so that you can be neighborhood buddies. And you may not agree on about everything, and perfection ain't going to happen, but you're making progress. And so a lot of guys go into a practice room and they beat themselves up. They spend too much time on one item, expecting it to go completely away in one day, which it's almost damn near impossible for the human brain and the neuromuscular system to completely overcome a major problem in one session. But what you can do is, like you were talking about, the snowballing effect, you know, you start slowly. And if you approach it properly, the next day you get a little more speed, and then it picks up speed, and eventually you make progress towards it, and you get it. The idea is to get it better each time you work on it, rather than just finalize it every day and then finalize the next one the next day. No, you're not chopping down trees here. You know what I'm saying? What you're trying to do is overcome your unfamiliarity with certain aspects of the playing. It might be with your warm up. I know guys that I could tell you, a lot of players need to put the whole thing away and the trumpet and everything in the case and sit down and study how to warm up properly. If they did that, it would create unbelievable improvements in their playing, because a lot of people warm up lazily. They don't warm up the same way. They do too much. They don't do enough. They cheat on this. They don't understand why fluttering is. They flutter. No, they don't know. I don't know where the muscles are. Okay, you know, or whatever, you know. And so you could focus in on one thing like that, or if you look at your breathing, or look at mouthpiece buzzing and stuff like that. All of these things are components that add up until when you put that horn up there and everything goes, oh my God, this is great. But if you don't prepare yourself properly, or if you don't work on all of the elements, that's physiological. Okay, so work on those things, then put the horn down, go put on a Chet Baker record, listen to a couple of tracks, take a break, you know, drink an Ensure or something, and then come back and then pick up the horn, and then close your eyes and go work on something else. Work on something creative. Leave the left brain side alone for a while and go learn to play something creatively, you know, learn to improvise or something, you know? So the idea is, and I'm a great believer in interval training, which is not, Bud Herseth and I, you know, I never got a chance to hang out a lot with him, but I did a few times with Dave Monette and Charlie Gorham and a few people. But, you know, the one thing about it is Bud kept a lot of horns out of the case with mouthpieces in them around his house, kind of like I do, you know. And when he'd go into a room, into a den, he'd pick up a trumpet and play on it for 10 or 15 minutes and put it down. Sometimes if you practice, if you want to get 3 hours or 2 hours, let's just say 2 hours of practicing in a day. How about you do a half hour here and then you take a break and read a chapter out of a book about something, or, you know, take a walk, play with the dog a little bit, come back a couple hours later, practice another half hour. If you practice 4 times a day for a half hour each, you're getting your 2 hours in, but you're resting in between the 2 hour things. You're resting, flushing a lot of, you're fluttering, getting a lot of blood in there. So the person who sits down and practices for solid 2 hours, he goes, oh, Christ, oh, my chops, oh, my God, oh, my chop. What happens is subconsciously, the mind starts to equate that practice is going to, this is going to hurt. Practice equals pain, sorrow, you know. So the person who always ends up their practice session totally depleted of chops, with aching in their corners and everything else, and can't get even a sound anymore, the subconscious mind watches everything you do, and it takes it as that's what he wants, I guess, you know. It doesn't think. There's nobody there. It just takes, it's just like a great big hard drive. Whatever you feed it, that's what it records for you, and that's what you get. And if you practice stupidly, you'll play stupidly. If you warm up haphazardly, you'll play haphazardly. If you don't focus in on your weaknesses and like to pat yourself on the back by playing your favorite little shit all the time and patting yourself, oh, ain't I good, ain't I good, ain't I good? No, you suck. You know, come on, deal with where you suck. You know, we all suck, but I suck in a lot of areas, but I'm not telling you what they are. Yeah, that's my private business, you think. And so, like for me, the big thing at this point in my life is I'm not interested in things that don't apply to me, as I mentioned earlier in the previous interview. You know, I focus in on what do I do here, me, from the time I have left in this earth to play. What am I going to do? Am I going to play the Carnival of Venice? I hope not. You know, you couldn't pay me to play that thing, you know? And I'm not going to spend time working on it just for what? For a truckload of $100 bills? I got a truckload of $100 bills. I don't need another one. They're in my mind, of course. But you see, the thing about it is people need to learn how to practice and go there and work on things with humility and try to make little improvements without getting upset and, oh, my brain, my sucks, you know. Don't do that to yourself. You know, pat yourself on the back for the fact that you took up a musical instrument. You had the sensibility to do that. That in itself is a magical thing. Do you know how many millions of billions of people there are on this planet that wish they knew how to play even a harmonica, an ocarina, anything? But look at us. We're playing like the king of the instruments, the trumpet, you know. So I think that's important, especially this pandemic thing. It's very important that you know how to be in that room alone and work on shit and make progress. You can't sit here and cry, there's no gigs, there's no gigs. Well, nobody has any gigs. You're not the only guy. Why are you sitting here crybabying it? You want to see how many crybabies there are on the planet right now with trumpets? Millions.
Every one of them.
Yeah, exactly. But see, and a lot of them are trying to teach in order to make a few bucks. But unfortunately, what they're passing around is a lot of dog poop. There's a lot of false data being disseminated casually just for dollars and cents. And that's, well, I guess I shouldn't bitch about that because eventually they're going to have to come to me and get it straight.
There you go.
Well, one of the questions here, and I think Tom Marriott said this the other day to us, but it's not just him. He posed the question, but I know everybody's wondering it, and certainly I am, and I bet Paul is too. You know, is it, what is Bobby Shew, you know, practicing? What are you doing to stay in shape and just keep things rolling? What's your practice day like here? Is it daily? Is it what have you been doing for the last year here now with this pandemic in place?
Well, I've been teaching online for 21 years, so this is not new to me. One of my very dear friends, a great trumpet player in Vegas, Gil Kalp, he's like one of the top lead players in the Las Vegas area. I met him in Germany. He was living over there and one of the top players. But Gil is a genius with computers, and he got me into teaching online with iChat about 21 years ago. And that's long gone, I guess. And then I did Skype for years. Now Skype is getting ready to fold up. They're going to cancel Skype this spring, is what I heard. It's going to go out of business. But I've been doing Zoom, and there's a couple of other ones out there, you know, that I haven't really gotten too far into, FaceTime and a few things like that. But I've been teaching. So the pandemic didn't change my life. I just stopped going to airports, you know, which is a great pleasure for me, you know, and no more handicapped rooms in shitty hotels and shitty restaurants. And I've been traveling with a wheelchair and walker for the last 2.5 years because of a bad injury and hip and femur replacements and broken shoulders, and the whole right side of my body is almost all metal. I look like the Transformer or something like that when you see an X-ray of me, you know. But I did 61 years on the road, so I'm just here. But I'm not dead, and I'm not depressed, and I'm still smiling, and I'm still laughing, and I enjoy life. And when I pick up the trumpet probably anywhere from 5 to 8 times a day. I don't sit and practice, as I said just a minute ago. I don't practice until I'm tired. I practice what I want to play. I wrote an article called New Freedom, which I don't know if I sent that to you, but it has to do with a realization that I had during the pandemic that I don't really need an audience to satisfy myself. I don't give a shit whether they like my playing or not. I only care about whether I like what I'm doing, you know? And there's a tremendous sense of freedom in that, you know, I'm not saying, and there's part 2 of this article going to come up very soon, because I've gotten a lot of reactions to people say, well, yeah, but you need audiences. We need audiences, you know. Well, I know that. I mean, I haven't gone down to a 2-digit IQ here over this, you know. What I have realized is that instead of me practicing to work on things that people will like, that will really impress them when I go on the stage and they'll go, oh my God, did you hear what he just played? Isn't he great? Oh my God, let's get him on the front of a Wheaties box, you know, or something like that. You know, get out of here. What I care about is how honest and how truthful and how connected am I to me. You know, the music is like in the first part of this interview, you know, we talked about that music is an ancient form of prayer and chanting and so forth. It's a form of therapy. That's why music therapy is such a valuable field within the medical industry, is because people who have had strokes and things like that, sometimes you can't get through to them unless you play a song. you know, and there are people who have you know, all kinds of problems, physical problems, mental problems. But you put them at a piano or something, and all of a sudden, this thing comes out, you know. And music has a way of connecting the inner part of a person. So in the practice room, like, I don't try to do every moment. Like, I'm not on the Himalayan mountaintop, like in an orange robe every time I pick up the trumpet, you know. Not trying to create that kind of a concept, but I love to play. And my wife is very knowledgeable about music, and she knows a lot of songs and a lot of things like that. So we play a game sometimes, and she'll holler out, you know, I'll be playing on the horn and just be fiddling around in front of the TV or something. I mute the commercials and stuff, and I'll be playing, and my wife will yell out, "If I should lose you." And I'll have to go. I have to play it for her. You dig? And then I'll play a song, and she has to guess the title of it, you know. And she'll yell out, "You're blasé." "Oh, so are you." You know? We have a lot. You know, it doesn't happen every day like that, but occasionally, you know. But I have a lot of fun. I pick up the horn and I try to play something that has some value to me and some meaning. And I compose sometimes. I play with no bar lines. I play rhythmically. I play arrhythmically. I play everywhere. I do. The other thing I do is I think very conscientiously about the physical side of my body and its relationship with the instrument. So the three things I do: fluttering correctly, lip buzzing correctly, mouthpiece buzzing correctly. And then if I do pick up the horn, I'm prepared, so that when I finally pick up the horn, it reflects. I always tell people that this thing here is the trumpet, and this is the amplifier for the trumpet. And this is a very true thing, in a sense, that a lot of people have to catch on to. So I tell people, if you're struggling with an embouchure setting and having any kind of problems here, put the trumpet in the case and take them a couple of loaves of bread and go sit in the park and throw bread to the pigeons and buzz on your mouthpiece. But don't buzz on your mouthpiece until you've fluttered and lip buzzed and prepared, because if you put the mouthpiece up there for unprepared muscles, you're going to suck. Then I have a little game that I play pretty much every day, and I keep a lead mouthpiece in the coffee table, or they're everywhere where I sit, but pick a lead mouthpiece. And once I'm warmed up, I start down and I do this drill. And all I'm doing is making sure that my aperture is set and centered for that note, okay? From there I go. Big breath. Okay, so I'll do that. You know, I don't hold it until the aneurysm sets in. You know, I'm not looking for like a stroke here or anything. But what I want to do is I'm training. I'm working. This is an isometric for the corners and the face muscles out here. You know, and so when I do that, I hold that note up at the top. You know, I can hold it for, you know, a fair amount. I'm not going to hold it for 30 seconds. You know, but I'm going to hold it for 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds or something like that. And I'm going to get out of there before anything collapses on me. But what I do is I pull it out, then I'll, you know, side cheek flutter, and then I'll set it up and do another one. And I might do 5, 6 of those, maybe 10 of them. And I do it maybe 2 or 3 times a day. But I can play the double C for you right now, you know, better than I could earlier because I just did that. And so my chops are always in shape, you know. And if I just pick it up, I'll get away from. You know, stuff like that. I have a lot of fun doing that. I don't know what that was, and I'll never remember it, but it's totally in the moment, you know.
So, Bobby, do you precede each of those 8 little practice sessions when you come up to the horn with the mouthpiece buzzing and do that siren thing? Or is that only a one-time in day?
No, the first time I go to play it in the morning, you know, I do the real proper full flutter, lip buzz, mouthpiece buzz, and do the proper warm up on the horn. Then 2 or 3 hours later, I don't have to go back to square one. All I got to do is replenish a little blood supply, maybe do a quick check on the buzzing, do a quick, you know, fine, I'm all right. Then I know I'm cool. Green lights are on, I get it right onto the horn.
Sure.
I don't have to sit there and do like the military Marine Camp Pendleton warm up every fucking 2 hours or so, you know. That's the whole idea, is that I just do, but I'm very much aware of, alert with, and in tune with my chops. I try to stay very much in tune with them at all times, you know. And that's kind of what Bud Herseth was getting across to me, you know, when he talked to me about kind of how he, you know, when he's home and so forth. And he's not, you know, sometimes when the orchestra, when he's sitting there and they're rehearsing stuff, you sit there for 40 minutes, you don't play a note. You know, that's what an interesting gig, you know.
So Craig Johnson, almost exactly about a year ago, before this COVID hit and shut us down, gave me a great little mini lesson on your fluttering, but how to flutter correctly. And I had been doing it incorrectly all these years. I just, you know, basically that. But he got into the whole thing.
Cheat,
yeah. Can you share that, or have you done that way too many times you'd rather not?
No, I'll show it because it's very important.
Great.
I showed it to Doc Severance and it blew his mind, you know. And I said, Doc, let me see you flutter. He went,
yeah.
There's no muscle in the lips. The lips are mucosa. It's a mucous membrane. There's no muscle in there. There is like a little transparent thing that covers the outside of it for protection, but it's not, you can't play on it. The muscle is the orbicular muscle surrounds the lips here. You have 2 sets of muscles that go back here to the TMJ. You got 2 muscles depressors that go on the side. And you got this modiolus, it's called. It's not a muscle. It's where the muscles all converge and hold hands like that. That's your corners, all right? So you want to get blood into the facial muscles out here. And your primary target is out there into the muscles. So if the average guy does like this, and I'll have you do it, put your finger on one of your corners and do your fluttering and watch what happens. No, flutter the way you did a minute ago.
Oh,
you see that tighten up where your finger is?
Yeah, and it tightened on the other side where my finger wasn't.
Yeah, it tightens up both sides.
Yeah.
Well, what happens is it forms a kind of a wall, a levee, and it impedes any kind of blood flow all the way out to the muscles in the cheeks. And I had a realization about this because I got every anatomy book that you can buy online almost here. But when you do this, you don't tighten the corner. And even if you take a little hand mirror like this and hold it there and you look at it and you go, oh my God, did you see that?
A lot more flapping, yeah.
Well, it's flapping. And the idea is, even if because we're on autopilot with tightening that corner, what you can do sometimes is take a finger and put it there and say, now pull it away about an inch and say, I want this corner to touch that finger. Well, it may not touch the finger, but it'll try. You see right there? You see that? Exactly. So you do 10 of them on one side, 10 on the other side, check it out. Go like this, you go, Now you're starting to get control over the feeling in your chops. You know, whether they're full of blood, water, whatever, they're ready to vibrate, they're ready to do something. But the dumbest warm up in the world is to pull a cold horn and a cold mouthpiece out of a case, stick it on a cold set of chops and expect to play. What do you expect to sound like? You're going to sound like Pee Wee Herman, not Woody.
Already I can feel, like having done that and trying to get my chops to reach that, I can already feel that it's tingling this much further out now.
Exactly. And the tingling is little capillaries in the surface that are close to the nerve endings that you can sense the movement of the blood in there. That's what tingling is all about. It's actually motion, of the blood moving through the skin surfaces and activating nerve endings and so forth through that. But that's a proper way to flutter. If you do fluttering properly, it doesn't take very long to fully flutter. A guy that sits there and does this, I mean, he hasn't hurt himself, but he hasn't really done himself a hell of a lot of good either, But almost everybody does it that way, And I was looking at the facial muscles one day, and I went, holy crap, there's no blood going out here, There might be a little bit, but what about the slower you do it, the more flappier it gets, the more blood goes faster in a shorter period of time. Duh, not rocket science.
So what I noticed when Craig first showed it to me is that I was locked in with my corners. And when I tried to do that, I was so tight. We 8 shows a week and beating my head against the wall and everything. I got lightheaded. I have a fair amount of lung capacity, and yet trying to make that flap slowly and to get that blood flow back in here, I was getting woozy, man. It took a while.
One of the things it's what you're dealing with is a lot of people don't realize, but when we take in air, we think we're taking in oxygen. Some of it is, but it's about 82% nitrogen and maybe 18 or 19% oxygen. The average intake of air is really not all oxygen. So what oxygen you take comes in to the lungs, converts to carbon dioxide. Okay, carbon dioxide can have a beneficial effect on your muscles in your body. But in order to do that, the muscles have to absorb the carbon dioxide properly. So while you wait, and it allows the carbon dioxide to absorb into the muscle. But if you don't do the little pause in between the breath or the flutter, the carbon dioxide is not absorbed in the muscle and goes to the brain and makes you hyperventilate, pass out, get dizzy. So people do this. Bye.
Yeah, that was me. Yeah.
Okay, so here's what you do. You do this. 1, 2. 1, 2. 2 seconds in between keeps you from looping. And the looping is where the carbon dioxide doesn't go into the muscle, but goes to the brain instead. But if you do the 2 seconds, about 2 seconds pause in between, just do it 1, 2, doodly-doop-dee-doop, 1, 2, doodly-doop-dee-doop, 1, 2, ta-da. And then you go, oh. And there's something, I'm going to write a big article. I'm reading so many books. Do you know who Keith Winking is by any chance? He's a trumpet teacher at Texas State University in San Marcos. I've known him for years. He's a really great guy, great player and everything. But we did a Zoom thing recently, and Keith and I both have respiratory issues. I was born blue. I was not breathing when I was born, and I spent my whole childhood come up through elementary school in sleeping in tents and things like that, and with atomizers pumping chemicals into me so I could breathe, and I had all kind of shit like problems, as a child. And when I took up the trumpet is when I started not having respiratory problems anymore, because it exercised my respiratory system. I had a pulmonologist in California one time tell me, he says, that trumpet is why you're alive. He said, if if you hadn't taken up the trumpet, you might have passed away as a teenager, you know, somewhere along the line. But the yoga breath that Maynard gave me, the Science of Breath book, and you got in addition, has helped. Keith Winking sent me a book by James Nestor called Breath. And it's an intense book. And it's about James Nestor, who is a person who had respiratory problems. He went to all these Himalayan gurus and Hindus and everything all over the world to try and learn to breathe. I'm reading a book right now called What Doesn't Kill Us. And it's all about these people that submerge themselves in ice water and stuff like that to stimulate a respiratory kind of reaction, you know. But I'm going to write a big article coming up about some breath exercises, some new yoga breath exercises, not the ones that you use for playing, but ones that you use for like just chilling and just getting, you know, yourself. I even have my students do a little yoga breath before they warm up, so that they warm up in the moment rather than in the future or in the past. They say, oh, I got to do a warm up because I got this gig tomorrow. Oh shit, you know. Oh no, you're not. You know, you're not going to get a good warm up like that. You know, and saying, oh Jesus, yesterday my warm up really failed me. You know, and you know you need to be in the moment now. And that makes you much more, you're going to play better and you're going to warm up better and you're going to practice better and whatever. So the fluttering is to do like, you know, whatever, 10, 5, 6, 10 on either side and stop and then close your eyes and roll and squeeze your lips together like this. Now, the first assignment I tell every student is, when you're practicing and you say, golly, my chops feel really good today. Oh, woohoo, this is so good. I mean, it feels nice, you know. Stop, put the horn down, close your eyes so you can see. And do this, squeezing your eyes, lips. Memorize that feeling. Now, when you close your eyes, you activate the right hemisphere of the brain. It takes you away from the mechanical. There's a little mechanical going on here too, but you conceptualize, you're getting both. So you're getting left brain and right brain. You're doing a mechanical drill to conceptualize, that's my feeling. It just might be the feeling you want every day. Now, if you could find your feeling, that says stability. If you could get stability every day, you have consistency. No more roller coaster ride. No more good day, bad day, good day, bad day. And why do the bad days always show up on the day when you're recording a solo? You know? Or on a game, you know? But one of the things, it's called a controlled warm-up. And if we learn to control and be first and foremost aware of the feeling, if you have a bad day and your chops feel terrible, put the horn down and do the same thing and go, oh my God, they feel paper thin, or they're so swollen. I don't care what it is, swollen, thin, fat, ugly, smell bad, whatever. You flutter and it'll neutralize everything. You think? Well, and a toothbrush, maybe, you know. But the idea about it is once you study physiology and understand what's going on here, you have tools that can bring about predictable, given results on a daily basis. Hello, wouldn't that be nice to have a consistent set of chops? You think Wayne Bergeron can go to work every day with a roller coaster set of chops? No way. Same with anybody. The guy sitting, you know, first chair in symphony orchestra, he can't have roller coaster chops. He'll have roller coaster payroll, you know, and all of us, this is one of the things that a pro has to work himself toward. And I have to say, in all honesty, that I've seen an awful lot of people who consider themselves pro players in the studios in New York or LA or London or wherever, who don't really have their shit together. They don't really know what they're doing. They're hoping for the best. And then it brings about what I call the 3 Ps: pinch, press, and pray. And if you put that horn up there and you just hope for the best, well, so if you're not doing good things with your breathing and didn't get a good warm up and know how to use your jaw to control the aperture and the airflow and so forth, and playing on a bird bath mouthpiece for trying to play lead or something, you playing lead with a big band on a 3C mouthpiece. You're at home plate with a banana trying to get a hit? Are you crazy? It's the wrong tool for the job. You're not going to drive a nail with a screwdriver or something like that, So the point being that once a guy gets a grip on all of this stuff and starts to control himself, he starts to excel as a player. Things happen, consistency starts to happen. He doesn't have bad days anymore, And you find ways when I did studio work, you can do a movie soundtrack and you can sit there for 2 4-hour sessions in a day and not play 25 minutes of the whole day. You're just sitting there while they're trying to get the synthesizer right, or a flute part, or a violins or something. And you're just sitting there, and then all of a sudden they say, okay, here we go, let us see. Trumpet, like high D, but you've been sitting there for 2 hours, So you got to have your shit together. And there are things that I do when they take a break, when they're not recording, I don't necessarily flutter for the entire orchestra to see me, but I'll do that, and I'll maybe do and then when they take a break, it says, okay, take 10, you guys. Okay, what'll I do? I'm gonna go. I'm gonna keep my chops connected to the instrument one way or another, And if I'm running from Universal to Paramount, and I'm in the car and I didn't play much at Universal and I don't know what's coming up at Paramount, I got the mouthpiece in my hand, and while I'm driving through traffic, I'm buzzing on the mouthpiece so that when I get to Paramount, I sit down and I'm ready, whatever. And if there's nothing but tacit sheets, I'm still ready. But if there's like high G, I'm ready. And so readiness is one of the things. I showed you earlier this thing about luck. Remember that thing? Here's the other half of it. You dig that?
Yeah, absolutely.
It goes in coincidence. So if you're well prepared, you're going to sound like a lucky guy. Well, how about that? Does this all make sense to you? I mean, does that answer the questions and stuff?
It sure does.
Oh, yeah, it's great. Great stuff.
And being prepared for me also has always been a source of calmness as well. It's the times that I'm most afraid showing up at a gig where I don't know what's going to happen in the studio, or, the first time sitting down to play a show and all the creatives are there, the people signing my check and ready to fire me. And that's when my nerves get the better of me. But I've found over years, a lot of trial and error, mostly error, is when I'm prepared, then I'm a lot more confident, and I can actually do the job that I know I can do from the practice room.
One of the things I want to interject in here, I thought about this earlier when we were talking about practicing, and I don't want to have done this long sessions with you two guys and for your group without interjecting this. One of the things that's really important for me in practicing, it's called target practice. Okay. And I don't like guns, and I don't believe in that people like you and I should have guns. I think they're for I don't even think they're military, because now we found out on January the 6th that a lot of cops and military don't deserve guns either, because they're full of shit too. But target practice for the trumpet is one of the things that makes the trumpet, causes our blood pressure to go up and makes us nervous, is whether we can be accurate. One of my students, a young kid the other day, I said, "What's the biggest issue for you?" He said, "Cleanliness." He doesn't want to miss any notes. Well, I understand, but you can't do perfection. We have to throw that out. But target practice, and so everything happens on a step-by-step process. It's called a gradualness or gradient or whatever. So here's an example. That's okay. So I get warmed up. I'm assumed I've done a warm up. All right. I'm not really at my maximum warm up right at this moment, but it's enough to show you. And so I'll take something just like an arpeggio like that in the middle. I'm not going way tub fart zone low on this thing, and I'm not worried about a double C yet, but I want to do this. Tempo di lerno is a very important thing in this. Go slow, don't get too fast, you know? You're opening up the intervals. But you start with the easy ones, and then you start taking one out, pull another one out, pull another one, jump from here up to there, come back down. Ooh, wow. Oh, that's, and then open it up. That's target practice. That's like you're now entering into the Vizzuti zone. You dig? You start getting where you can jump around and double tongue like quadruple octaves, you know. That guy can double tongue between here and fucking Venus.
And without breaking a sweat.
No, I know that he's not from this planet, that guy. But you know, the idea about it is then you change it, you know. Be random with it, move around, and don't think ahead too much on it. Let it happen like real right now, right now, right now. You think it just at the second and you play it, you know? And you know, you can start pushing the envelope as far as you want without getting egotistical about it, you know, and getting like trying to wave your whatever in front of everybody, you know. The idea is to gain that ability. Now, if you use air pivoting in your playing and so forth, where you know where the pivot targets are inside of the cup of your mouthpiece, you can sit there and you can have sat through 200 measures of violin solo and come in and go. You have to come right in on it, sit there and go, 420 years ago, our forefathers fucked up the Constitution by, okay. You know, you dig what I'm saying? Challenge yourself, play games, sit there and recite Mary Had a Little Lamb, and then come in and play that high C again. And boy, you create challenges for yourself like this, but you can't do them prematurely because you'll invalidate yourself and you'll miss, and you'll miss, and you'll say, I'm not worth a shit. Yes, you are worth a shit, but you have to teach yourself how to do that in a sensible way without being, you know, like without all of the self-importance and try to, you know, all that stuff. I want to buy a bigger car, you know what I mean? Bigger gun, something like that. But those kind of things, target practice is a very important thing. It's part of a very important part of what I practice these days because, you know, I still want to be accurate on the trumpet, you know, and I have to do something. I have a couple of recordings I'm doing, a couple of guest appearances with college bands coming up in a few weeks where I have to, they've got the charts, they're going to record all of the big band charts and send it to me. I'm going to put on earphones and stand in the back of the corner back there and record my parts for a bunch of big band charts. It's got double C's in it and everything else, you know. I got to be ready for it, you know. I'm not worried about it at all. I'll get it. I'll nail it. There's no problem. But I'll probably have a beer next to me when I do it, you know. No, I don't. But you know, the point being is that we are our own best teachers, and we have to be smart enough and skilled enough to go into that practice room and think about how we approach things in a sensible way with, to move ourselves slightly forward and gain a little more control here and there about this and that, and, play games with the thing, but know what the hell you're doing. Don't be stupid. Don't sit there and try to be Wayne Bergeron or anything like that. I mean, one of Wayne Bergeron's enough.
Yeah, damn it. Somebody asked a question. Now, just getting back to this, the pivot points within your mouthpiece. Somebody asked, when you are playing in the real extreme upper register, is your tongue touching your bottom lip when you're, say, on a double C or something like that? Or is that something you even think about? I don't know.
Ask that question needs to get it back in it. Talk about the lack of a choo-choo train as a child. I mean, a lot of people they get into too much little significance things. There's a lot of stuff on YouTube about trumpet teachers out there teaching all this shit, and the tongue. There's the fixed tongue thing, like Jens Lindemann plays, I cannot play I cannot do that. I mean, nailing my tip of my tongue to my articulating with the surface of my tongue. Get out of here. But I sound bad enough as it is without adding that. But no, I mean, I don't know. When I'm playing a double C, the last thing I'm doing is sitting there going, now where the fuck is my tongue? Oh, did I say tongue? Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know where my tongue is when I'm playing a double C. You want me to find out? No. But the whole thing with a pivot is I'm not pointing my tongue in there and you play. Let me see. It's kind of, my tongue at that point is kind of right on the, touching the top of my bottom teeth, but on the back side of them a little bit, But what's important is that the back of my tongue is up here because it's helping, it's the Venturi kind of thing that's helping keep the airstream velocity at the higher level that may enable me to play that note. But if I start playing games with my tongue, I'm more interested in my jaw with the pivot, because the tongue and the jaw being connected as they are, the tongue is a form of a muscle, and you can do certain things with it. The problem with most people with their tongue is they raise the tip of it too high prematurely, and it raises the jaw up and it reduces the size of the aperture. And if you try to play with too small of an aperture up there, you get stuff like, and then I know guys that'll stand around and say, you hear that, man? It was a triple C. No, it wasn't. He just pissed off every dog and then that's all. And look, at the neighbor just pulled his gun out, so.
Yeah, I did hear you speak on, one of the biggest problems that trumpet players have is that they tend to play much too tight here, and that this needs to be opened up, and you need to learn to breathe and support in the proper manner.
Yeah, and one of the things that goes with that, why the fourth fundamental is the proper mouthpiece, is because if the mouthpiece is here, these are your lips, and your throat is here, and the air's coming up here going that way, and the mouthpiece, you have by the way you compress at the wedge area down in the abdominal area, you create PSI, pounds per square inch. That compression converts to velocity. The faster the air is moving, the faster your lips are going to vibrate. Like a guitar string, the higher the pitches are going to be. But when you have a certain velocity, like 300-mile-an-hour air, and it goes into this 1 1/4 C mouthpiece, it goes, oh boy, it's a cathedral. Look at this, and when your air goes into the wrong cup, it slows the airspeed down, and you have to, only way you can get the airspeed back up is by pinching your lips tight together again. And that reduces the size of the aperture. That's going to reduce the size of the slot. And that's going to make the note sound like, like a mouse fart, if anything, or shut it off completely. So, and a lot of teachers I know say the letter M. Play. Well, wait a minute. If I'm saying M, there's no aperture. So how do I create an aperture? Well, I have to blow like hell until I blow my lips apart. Well, that's an effort. But if I just drop my jaw, I've actually controlled the aperture by a jaw movement, which, I mean, you know, that was easy enough. And I didn't have to blow like a maniac to make it work, you know? So there's a lot of false data being passed on to students worldwide about when they don't know about how the physics of acoustical physics of what makes sound and all that. So I'm not an expert at all that, but I'm not dumb either, you know. So
no, absolutely. I mean, this is just, even for me, just to have you reiterate some of this stuff it brings back a lot of great memories, and it's inspiring, right, Paul? I mean, geez, you know, you're still there doing it. You've been kicking ass for all these years, and have helped so many of us and inspired so many of us that I'm just so glad to see you at it. And you know, what can I say? I think this may be a good area, a good place to, you know, we're coming kind of to the end of our time here, but you know, I just want to express that from the bottom of my heart, how much you've meant to me over the years. And even though we haven't always been in contact and stuff, and I know I speak for a lot of people because I've talked to a lot of people. They say, "Oh yeah, man, tell Bobby hi. You know, make sure you mention it and this and that." But there are a lot of people, man, that you have made just an absolute huge impression on their lives and on their careers. I honestly don't know if I would have ever even had a career as a trumpet player, musician, you know, had I not met you, you know. And so for that, I am forever grateful.
Well, I want to throw on one little thing before we finish here.
Sure.
I read a band director down in Lafayette, Louisiana, back in 1968, gave me a transcript of a lecture that Gustav Holst did at Yale University, and I have the transcript in PDF form anyway. But just to paraphrase the little thing that he said in the middle of it, he said that anybody that makes any progress in the field of the arts, especially in the field of music, owes it to the next generation to turn around and help the next generation come up and show them what you've learned and how you've managed to succeed, and show them the tools that you've used to help. He says, and to not do so is a crime of omission. He says, how can you see a little lady need to go across the street? For God's sake, help her. Put your shit down and go help the little old lady, you know? I mean, someday you're going to be walking around and need some help, and what goes around comes around, you know? And when I read that transcript of Gustav's thing, and I read that thing about a crime of omission, I went, Jesus, you know? And I've been teaching anyway, trying to help people play, you know, but I essentially didn't really know. Didn't have the energy and the dedication and the knowledge, first of all. I didn't really know what I was doing. You know, I was helping people, but I didn't have all the data about the yoga breath and the muscles and stuff, you know. But it slapped me in the face like a wet mop, you know. And I went, you know, that's true, man. I need to really make sure that I get myself in a position that I can really help these people. I mean, if I'm crippled, I can't help that little old lady across the street. Well, so go buy a walker or something, help her some way, get some roller skates. But that's one of the things that turned my whole dedication attitude around as far as teaching, is that little thing by Gustav Holst is to try to, you know, turn around and show people, try to help people improve, you know. There's enough people struggling in this world with problems and everything, especially now what we're going through with this COVID thing and all of the political bullshit and the religious wars worldwide and all of the crap and I mean, it's just insane, you know, and I feel like I got off at the wrong stop sometimes, you know. Maybe I'm supposed to be on Mars or something. I don't know, but the point being that one of the like Bobby, as you're saying, I have a tremendous. I'm still doing it, yeah, you know, and I could easily get burnt out, but not really. You know, I lay awake at night. My wife says, "Will you sleep?" I'm sitting there thinking about somebody's chops. I'm half writing an article in the middle of the night. I sleep 2 hours, 2.5 hours. I wake up, I start working on an article, you know. Or I'm thinking about some kid in, you know, south of Oregon working on his chops or something. And I don't get a hell of a lot of sleep, but I do get an awful lot of smiles on my face from a lot of kids that are doing all right. And that's a great pleasure to me. I'm always like pleased when I see another kid. A kid from Germany just sent me a bunch of tracks of his first CD, you know, and I was listening to him and I went, holy shit. And this kid talks about going to my clinics and taking a lesson. I didn't even remember the guy hardly, you know, but it's nice to get responses like that from people and know that I've been able to help somebody with their career. I don't teach people to play. I give them tools to help them teach themselves how to play the way they want to play. And that's what the shit's really all about. You know, there's an article I sent, I think, to you called Teaching versus Learning. Teaching is not what we do. Learning, the recipient, is what's most important. That I give the right tools so that the recipient goes, wow, I got the right tools. I can build my house. I can build a career. I can play the way I want to play. If I've done that for somebody, I'm a happy guy, you know. So thank you very much for inviting me into this. I always love seeing you. And Paul, nice to see you again.
Good to see you again too.
And I love talking about all this shit, as you guys can tell. I'm far from bored sitting here talking about stuff I love. You know, I have a great passion for all of this, you know. So well, I hope the people in your group that listen to it get something beneficial out of it, you know, and I'll hear from some of them in private lessons or whatever, but I just want to contribute. So thank you very much, man. It's been
thank you for being with us. I know I'm going to have to go back and watch it again and take a few notes because there's some things that I didn't want to take my focus away from here and start writing, but I know that there's some real gems in here. So thank you.
All right. Well, you guys, thanks an awful lot and good luck to you. And let me know when you post this thing. I'd like to see what I said.
Okay, we'll send you some links and we'll put up the link to the wedge on there too, just because that's another great video that everybody can benefit from. So,
okay.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to speaking with you again in the not too distant future, and take good care and wishing you the very best in your life and your health, and say hi to Lisa for us. Okay. And we'll look forward to seeing you soon.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Bobby.
Thanks.